So you have a full-time job, but you enjoy web design on the side. Maybe it's from a previous job that you had as a web designer, or maybe it's something you've taught yourself along the way and now you'd like to start doing projects for other people and get paid for them. But how do you do it? How do you start a business? What are the steps you go through? What are the I's you need to cross, or I's you need to dot and the T's you need to cross to get yourself set up for success from the beginning? Well, hopefully this video will help give you a little bit of insight on some things that worked for me when I was first starting out. Hey, what's going on? My name is Dave. I'm the owner, designer, sole employee of Ignis Web Design, which is a side business to my regular full-time job. And as I was starting my business, I did a lot of Google searches, watched YouTube videos, tried to figure out what do I need to know to start a web design business and to get started getting clients and getting paid for things. Because there's a lot of unknowns out there. And I saw a lot of videos and resources about starting a business as your sole source of income, or for students that were just starting out, wanted to get design experience, build their portfolio, but not a lot on starting a side business. And so I figured I'd share some of the things I learned along the way, because there are some nuances and a few things that are a little different when you start a side business as opposed to starting a full-time business that's going to be your sole source of income. So first off, why start a business? Well, if you're anything like me, you mention to somebody that you do web design and their ears immediately perk up and they want to talk to you about building a website. That's kind of how it was for me. Ignis Web Design started 2 years ago, and it started as a way for me to get paid for a project I was working on. I'm a full-time firefighter, and on the side, I design websites for fire departments. And previous to that, I had 8 years experience in web design. I was a marketing director. And so when I became a full-time firefighter, I started talking with some folks, and when they heard that I did web design, they wanted me to start working on some projects for them. And so initially when I started the company, it was just for a way for me to get paid legally, because I didn't want to take the money under the table. So I started it that way. And as I started looking into resources, how to build my business, I couldn't really find a lot that were specific to my situation. And this video will discuss some of the things, like I said, that I've learned along the way, and it may not apply to everybody, but hopefully somebody out there can find this useful or helpful, at least in guiding them in a direction that at least so far has been successful for me. So first off, why start a business? Obviously get paid for what you do, and to be able to be your own boss. The benefits for taxes are huge as well, and it really is no borders, and I'll get into that in a second. But get paid for what you do and be your own boss is huge. If you've got any skill whatsoever in web design, you should be getting paid for what you do. Anybody can build a website with Wix or Squarespace or GoDaddy site builders, but it's not going to necessarily address the needs of every client out there. And that's where you come in. You bring the tailored solutions to their needs, and that's what makes you invaluable, and that's why you should get paid for what you do. Tax benefits are huge. I personally created an LLC, and in the state of Oregon where I work, it allows me to do my taxes with my personal taxes. So I use an accounting software that track my income and track my expenses, and then I use that at the end of the year. I just use TurboTax and basically plug everything in from my accounting software, and it tells me how much I owe. The nice thing, at least in the state of Oregon, I'm not sure how it is with other states, but it allows me to do my taxes all at once at the end of the year. Some places, especially if it's your sole source of income, will require you to do quarterly tax estimates that you have to submit. But if you're doing it as a side business, chances are you're just going to be able to, if you form an LLC, you're just going to be able to do it at the end of the year. And doing an LLC is pretty straightforward. I'm not going to get into the specifics because it really is different for every state. But generally, you're going to register your LLC with your state. You're going to register locally. You may have to do it with your county or your city. For me, I do the state and then the city. The county doesn't have any type of registration or costs, registration fees, or anything like that. And then register federally with the IRS, get my employee identification number, and that's pretty much it. It's pretty straightforward. There are resources out there that I'm sure are available pretty much everywhere. I was able to find a resource at a local community college. So any community or junior college that's out there may have small business resources. And I was able to sit down with a counselor for free and figure out basically what I needed to do to get started to start the business as far as the legal process and going through the paperwork and whatnot. So keep in mind that those resources are out there if you look for them. So once you've decided how you're going to start the business and make that decision that you are going to start your business, then what? Well, I'm going to offer 6 steps, pretty simple steps to take before you really even start doing web design work. You really do need to build a base for your business before you start doing work. Otherwise, you're going to be a little scatterbrained as you go about it. And that's exactly the situation I had. And I'm still learning along the way. So hopefully these things will help you as you move forward with starting your side business doing web design, that you won't have to go through the ups and downs that I had to go through. So first off, selecting your target audience. This is probably one of the most important things when you decide to start your web design business. More important than how much you're going to charge, more important than your package names or even the name of your company. Figuring out who you're going to target is extremely important. And it's a mistake I think that a lot of businesses, not just in web design, but a lot of businesses do, is they try to be everything to everyone. And you really can't. No one can be a jack of all trades as hard as you try. Some people can get pretty close, but for the most part, pick a niche. Pick something that you are passionate about, that you have knowledge about, some niche, some industry specifically that you want to specialize in. For me, with fire service experience, I have about 8 years fire service experience, volunteering and being a full-time firefighter. So I wanted to design websites specifically for fire departments. Once you determine your niche and who you're going to target, learn their needs. Learn about them, ask questions, find out what their struggles are and what a website solution will do for them. For me, fire departments, a big one was volunteer recruitment. Volunteering has taken a massive drop across the board. Not only volunteer firefighters, but volunteering in any organization has taken a massive dip. People are very careful with their time now, and volunteering takes up time. And so one of the big needs of a fire department is how to increase or better their recruitment and their retention of their volunteers. There are other needs. I won't get into them because this is more about starting a business and not specifically about the needs of a fire department, but figure out what their needs are. Figure out what their struggles are and how you can address their needs. And next is determine your solutions. And that is a broad statement because your solutions can be fairly widespread depending on their needs, but you still want to focus those solutions. So for me, when I was determining solutions based on the needs of my target audience, which was fire departments, I had to determine, okay, what platform am I going to build websites on? What solutions as far as plugins or additional features can I implement that will address those needs? So for me, I personally use WordPress and the page builder Elementor. Now you're going to see a lot of recommendations in here or suggestions for various softwares or companies. These are just what I use and I've had success in. This by no means is, like I said, the gospel truth. This is just what has worked for me. WordPress is an amazing platform. It is a content management system, and it works very well, not only for you as the designer, but also for the client. If the client decides that they want to manage and update their own website, it's easy to create a environment that they can successfully manage their own site. And that also, same can be said with Elementor. Elementor is an amazing platform that allows basically drag and drop functionality to be able to create some very, very visually stunning sites with good user experience. So determine the solution as far as what your base offering is going to be. For me, it was WordPress using Elementor. And if you know anything about WordPress websites, you need a theme. I personally use GeneratePress. GeneratePress is one of the themes that works very well and is actually named by Elementor as a theme that works very, very well with their page building platform. Then, like I said, determine the specific plugins to meet their needs. So for me and the fire departments, not only did they have a recruitment need, but they also had needs for being able to accept donations for their nonprofit associations. They needed a way for their volunteer firefighters to have access to files, documents, training videos when they're not at the fire station. So they needed a members only content section. They needed a way for them to list events on their calendars. They needed a way to sign up for duty shifts. So as I was learning their needs, I was able to determine solutions that will meet those needs that I can offer as enhanced features with the websites that I was building. Then building on that, you want to build packages and pricing based on those solutions. Like I just said, the plugins that would add enhanced functionality are additional enhancements, enhanced features that I can add onto the initial package deal for the website that I'm building. Now, a lot can be said about packaging and pricing. There's a lot of school of thought for building packages that have fixed costs so that the client knows upfront how much it's going to cost. There's other options for hourly, other options for charging monthly. Personally, I would stay away from hourly just because there's a lot of unknowns with the hourly. And when you're first starting out, you may build a website and you're still learning along the way, and it may take you 15 to 20 hours to build a website. Whereas building the same website 6 months later when you have a little more experience is going to take you a lot less time. So you obviously don't want to get paid less for the same work you're doing, but you're just doing it more efficiently and better, so you're quicker at it, if that makes sense. For my experience and for my personal application for fire departments, they like a fixed cost up front. They have a budget to maintain. They're spending taxpayer dollars. They need to know specifically how much money they're spending to build a website. So I build packages that have fixed costs, and my pricing for my enhanced features is also fixed. So they know when I create a proposal for them exactly how much it's going to cost. Now, the nice thing is I don't need to worry too much about, for me personally, charging the going rate for a website because I'm just making supplemental cash. So when I price my packages, I keep in mind not only my time and how much money I'm going to be making for the work that I'm doing, but I also take into account who my target is. My target oftentimes is a smaller volunteer fire department who has a very, very limited budget because they have a very limited tax base. So they don't have a ton of money. They need to spend their money on fire engines and protective equipment and medical supplies, the things that help them do their job. And while a website is extremely important, especially in prevention and communication to the community that they serve, they don't always have the money to spend on that. So I price my packages a little lower than what going rate is within my competition because I'm not trying to make a living off of it. And so I can afford to charge a little less. Plus, I want them to have a website they're proud of and that their community is able to easily use while not breaking their budget, if that makes sense. Never stop learning about your audience. And this is something I'll mention at the end of the video as well. You always want to continually learn about your audience, learn about their needs because they may continue to change as their business evolves or as their organization evolves. So never stop asking questions, never stop learning about what their needs are, because that will allow you to build your solutions to meet those ever-changing needs. So the next step is a competitive analysis. Who competes in your niche? For me, I did some research on agencies, web design agencies that do web design for fire departments. And I took a look at what they offered and I took a look at what they didn't offer and somewhat modeled what I was doing after what they were doing. When someone comes to your website, they're probably not just shopping your website. They're probably looking at other options as well. Just the same as if you were to go shopping for something, you're going to look at all the competition to see who offers the best. So knowing where your competition stays or sits or what they offer is extremely important, because it's going to allow you to model what you offer to be in that competitive range. You want to develop unique solutions. Unique solutions are going to allow you to address the needs of your clients that may not necessarily be addressed by your competition. And that goes back to learning your client and understanding your client. Competitive pricing, like I mentioned, for me in my business, in the situation I have, I'm not trying to be the lowest cost, but I'm also not trying to be the most expensive. I price based on the input I get from clients and based on my knowledge of fire department budgeting and how that all works. And so that's how I price, because it works better for who I'm serving, as opposed to just trying to make as much money as I possibly can. So some people come to me because I have lower prices. Some come to me because I have the solutions that they're looking for that will address and meet the needs that they have. So it really depends. But competitive pricing is very important. You don't want to be way higher and you don't want to be way lower, because you also don't want to undercut the services that you offer. You want to get paid for the good work that you do. So step 3, this is probably one of the most important parts at the beginning that I wish I knew. I wish I knew all of these processes before I started, because now that I'm kind of learning and my business is growing, I'm learning things along the way that I wish I knew from the start. So the first step, prospecting. So prospecting is how are you going to find your new clients? Well, there's a lot of ways that you can do that. When you're first starting out, I would say talk to some of your local businesses, friends, families. For me, when I first started out, I just happened to mention at the fire station that I do web design. And a few months later, I had a project that I was working on for our fire union. And after that, it was other firefighters within my department who owned small businesses on the side who needed a website for their business. So that's how I started to develop my portfolio, and word of mouth helped me grow from there. And then eventually I was able to rank well with SEO on Google and on Bing, and I started getting clients that were outside of my local area. But initially, when you're first starting out, it doesn't hurt to start locally. Build up your portfolio, and maybe you charge a little less, or maybe you do a couple free sites. I've done a handful of sites for free where I put all my skills and my design ideas into these great websites. But yeah, I didn't get paid for them. And it makes it easier when it's a side business and it's not your sole source of income. But it allows you to build a portfolio. If you say to somebody, hey, I'll design a website for your business for free, I'm trying to build my portfolio, and you build them something that they love, not only are they going to tell other people, but you're going to continually help build your portfolio, which is going to help your business grow. But once you're past that, then what? SEO, word of mouth, cold emails. Cold emails, I put a question mark after that. It has worked for me in the past, but it's not the best option to take. For me, my cold emails were simply emailing fire chiefs in the area and saying, hey, my name's Dave. I'm a firefighter in the area and I design websites, and I noticed some ways that I could help your website for your agency work a little better for you and for your community. Some bit, some didn't. I would probably say I got about a 5% return. So it's not extremely successful, but it works. It's a way to put yourself out there. And a lot of times they'll save your email. And when they're ready, which actually I have a client meeting this week with a fire chief who saved my email, and months later, when they were ready, got in touch with me. So it does work. SEO I'm not even going to get into SEO very much, because it is, as you probably know, a beast that is continuously needing to be tamed. It's constantly changing. For me, I'm fortunate in my niche that when I created my website and I did some really basic SEO and did some blog posts, I appear number 5, number 4 on the first page of Google when you type in fire department web design. I'm lucky because it's a niche that's very, very, very targeted, and there's not a lot of players in the market. And when you go to a fire department and you say, hey, I'm a full-time firefighter, but I do business on the side, I do web design. For those specific agencies, for that specific client, it works well because they would rather trust and work with somebody who's in the industry as opposed to someone who they do fire department web design, but that's not their sole focus. They do others. It's nice to have that expertise in that field. So if that's you and you have experience in your full-time job doing something, but you can do web design for that industry, you bring that experience to the table. New clients. So you need a process for new clients. How are you going to cultivate the new client when they get in touch with you? So let's say they either respond to your cold email or maybe they email you from your website. Then what? The most successful thing I've had, and it's been a recent development, is utilizing a couple forms. And I use Jot Forms. Jot Forms is free and it allows me to have, I believe it's just up to 5 forms, but for me, I only use 2. And it allows me to go in and either if I'm meeting face to face or if I'm doing a phone meeting, I can go in and type out all the answers to my questions that I have. And when I'm done, I hit submit and it emails me that entire questionnaire in a PDF form. I then just save it to my OneDrive in my client folder for that client, and I have it right there to be able to refer to. I personally do, my questionnaires are twofold. I have a needs assessment, which allows me to learn a little bit more about why they want a website, what needs they're trying to address, and what solutions they think might be good for their website. And then I also have a project questionnaire, which goes into depth more about the actual design of the site and the content of the site. So what type of site do they want? Do they want it built on a template? Do they want it custom built from scratch? What enhanced features do they want? And all that is listed in the questionnaire. And as I continue to learn about clients, I can go in and just edit the questions in that questionnaire. And the nice thing too is if I'm talking with a client and I want to go over the questionnaire and maybe we're getting pretty short on time, I can simply email that questionnaire to that client. They can fill it out at their leisure and send it to me. And it works out pretty well. And make sure you ask a lot of questions. The biggest mistake people in sales make, and I came from sales, previous to marketing, I was in sales, is we like to talk a lot about ourselves. We like to say what cool things we do, what solutions we can offer, because we're trying to sell ourselves to them so that they don't go to the next competitor. But you want to ask a lot of questions. The best feedback I've ever had from clients is when I send them a very long questionnaire. When they've dealt with web design agencies before, or even sales organizations for different things before, they are floored by how many questions I ask and how much I care about what they think as opposed to just trying to sell myself. So ask a lot of questions. Not only is it going to help you in your design procedures and your design processes as you build their site, but it's also going to put the client at ease and in a position of, wow, this person actually cares about my needs and is not just trying to sell themselves. Your project scope. So that was what I was discussing about the questionnaire as far as what the project design guidelines are going to be, how I'm going to get content, how I'm going to get all that kind of stuff. And so having project and design details will help you kind of narrow in on what exactly you're going to be offering them. And that'll help immensely when you're trying to design a website or when you're trying to determine the project, what that scope is going to be. And that I do that, like I said, in the questionnaire, the Jot Forms questionnaire, it works well for me to just do it with that. And then that way I have a good idea of what they're looking for. The design process, templates versus custom design. Do they want a template website versus a custom design? Some clients want a template website because it's less expensive. Some of them want a custom design built from scratch. So determining the process for each. Because if they're doing a template design, there's different things that you're going to need from them versus if you're doing custom design. The building phase and status check-ins. So the building phase ties into the first one, templates versus custom design. The phases are going to be a little different when you're building a template website versus building a custom website. So determining what those phases are going to be as you build the website. And with those phases comes status check-ins. I like to do about 2 status check-ins per project, and that allows me to build out the site and then have a client meeting, share my screen, show them what we're working with, and see kind of what their thoughts are, show them, where we're headed next and get their input so that when the final project's done, we can go back and say, we had 2 check-in meetings and you approved everything. Now we have the final thing and we're good to go. Content is huge. In my opinion, there's kind of there's 2 sides to this. One is what I'm starting to go to is getting content before you even start the project versus getting content along the way. When I was first starting out, I was really excited to get a contract signed and, okay, well, we'll figure out content along the way as far as text, what they're going to have on the About Us page, what kind of pictures they're going to have. But what you'll end up doing is chasing your clients. They will take a long time to get you your content. That is the biggest holdup in any of my design projects is content and getting the content from the client. So if you feel comfortable telling the client, we're not going to begin a project till we have all the content for every single page, that might not be a bad thing. And if they don't have the content, offer your services. If you're good at typing and writing, that might be something that you can do. If not, there are lots of freelancers out there who will do content editing and content creation, copywriting that you can include in your proposal. Obviously, they need to get paid, so there's obviously going to be a cost with that. But having an option for creating content for them removes one more hurdle that you don't have to worry about waiting for them to send to you. Completion, you want a process for completion for client review and final acceptance, and also for site launch, maintenance, and follow-up. So when your site is launched, so for me, there's a certain number of checklists that I go through and check off each of the tasks to make sure that the site is launched properly. To make sure that the Google Search Console and the Bing Webmaster Tools have all the sitemaps and everything's registered properly. Maintenance, if they're going to maintain their own website, I create some tutorial videos for them so that they can see exactly how to maintain their own site. Or if they're going to do a maintenance package through me where I maintain their site, making sure that everything is set up and lined up so that when I start maintaining their site, it's easy to just click it on and get it ready to go. And then follow up, checking in with your clients, whether or not they are doing business with you for monthly or annual maintenance or not. Just making sure they're happy, because you never know. They may get an email from you that says, hey, how are things going? And they have a question or they have an additional thing that they maybe didn't think to email you about, but the fact that they heard from you, they now want to talk to you. Business support, step 4. So this is another very important thing I wish I knew from the beginning. These things are going to be what I recommend based on my experience. There are a lot of options out there, but these are just what have worked for me for a small side business. One of the important things you want is some type of CRM, a customer relationship manager. And basically what that is, it's a database with your customers, their contact information. You can create tags. So this customer or this person, company is a lead. And then when they become a customer, you can change it to customer. You can manage tasks. You can assign tracks to them, basically saying, hey, this person is now a website customer. And it creates a web design track that now gives me my 15 tasks that I need to do. You can set it for email reminders. You can do workflows. There are a lot of options out there, and there's a lot of options as far as free versus paid solutions. Personally, I use Capsule CRM. Capsule CRM is free, and it does everything I need it to do. It allows me to track emails. It allows me to get daily reminders if I have tasks due. And it allows me to manage all my clients based on what type of client they are. I can quickly see who my maintenance customers are, where I'm doing annual site maintenance. I can easily see my leads, my prospects, my website customers. I can even see categories, fire departments versus some of the small businesses I first did work for versus some nonprofits. It's an amazing tool and it's free. I would highly recommend checking out Capsule CRM for a CRM solution. Another one out there is called HubSpot. It's somewhat overpriced in my opinion. It's pretty expensive, but it does a lot and it does it very well. So that's another option if you're willing to pay a little bit for it. Accounting and invoicing. Excuse me, by no means am I an accountant. But I've found at least a tool for me that I think works very well. And there's a couple out there that do work fairly well as well. Wave Apps is what I use. They used to be called Wave Accounting. They're called Wave Apps now. And they offer accounting and invoicing where you can connect it directly to your bank account, or you can just manually enter transactions. I personally enter the transactions manually. I don't have a ton of them going on all the time, so I don't need it synced with my bank account. And for my bank account, I use a business savings account, but I do all my transactions with my personal credit card or my personal debit card. Whether that's a good idea or not, it's either or. Probably should do a separate business account, but it works well for me where I'm at. And that's something you'll need to figure out what's going to work best for you. Should you do a business checking and a business savings versus doing your personal? But whatever you choose, you need to have some type of accounting software. Wave Apps is free and it does it very, very, very well. There's a mobile version there's a mobile app for Android and for Apple for iPhones, as well as a website version, an online version through your browser. And I have no complaints about it. It's very easy to enter your transactions and it's very easy to print off reports at the end of the year for taxing. I love it and can't say enough great things about it. FreshBooks is another good one. I've never tried it, but it's one of the top reviewed ones out there. And then QuickBooks. FreshBooks and QuickBooks don't offer the same things for free that Wave Apps does, but they do have some paid subscriptions. But again, for a free software that works well, Wave Apps, I'd highly recommend. Cloud storage. You need a place to store your client files and you don't want to store them locally on your hard drive. If you're anything like me, you've had hard drives crash before and you lose all your stuff. Fortunately, it wasn't business stuff I lost. It was a bunch of MP3s from college, but still, it sucks. So having some type of cloud storage is highly recommended. There's a ton out there. I personally use OneDrive. OneDrive is where I manage all my client and accounting and all my documents. Everything for my business is in a OneDrive account. Dropbox is great too. Google Drive is also great. There are two kind of ecosystems that you can use for cloud storage and for business productivity. There's the Microsoft side and then there's the Google or the G Suite side. Either one is great. In my experience, I've used the Microsoft side just because I use Word and Excel and PowerPoint a lot and Outlook. And so when I purchase an Office 365 account, which is what I'd recommend, I personally use the premium plan, which allows me to have an Exchange email server, which allows you to access your email, all your contacts, all your calendar across all your devices. I pay $150 a year. And so with that, I get a 1 terabyte OneDrive cloud storage. And so that works well for me. But all those other options, Dropbox, Google Drive, those are also very good. And Google Drive will put you into the Google ecosystem if you decide to use that. Hosting. Hosting, obviously for your own website, but also if you're not going to do hosting on your own, which if you're a one-person company and you don't have experience doing any type of hosting or server support, I highly recommend not doing any hosting on a server that you have in your house. Some smaller local web designers that I've spoken with do hosting themselves in their house on servers that they maintain in their house. And unless you have server administrator experience, I would leave hosting to the companies that do hosting. I personally use 1&1. I've had zero problems with them. They are a great company. They recently rebranded as Ionos. So it's 1&1 Ionos. But they have very, very good hosting packages. Their support is 24/7. And I recommend all my clients do hosting with them. So that's what I'm getting at when I say hosting, is find a host that you can recommend to your clients. Because your clients are going to come to you, especially if they don't have a website, and they're going to ask about a web host, and they're going to ask about where they can purchase their domain. So having a partner that you recommend is a good idea. 1-in-1, HostGator, WP Engine, Bluehost, all of them support WordPress sites very well. And they also have what are called referral programs. So if you refer a client, or basically you sign up a client for a web hosting package, you will get, based on the package that you signed them up for, you will get a little kickback. It's usually like 20 to 40 bucks, something like that. I think Bluehost offers up to 60 bucks. I don't recall though, but 1-in-1 offers about 20 bucks, and it's just an extra way to put a little bit of cash in your pocket. And so finding a hosting partner is very important and a good thing to know from the beginning. Video tutorials. So video tutorials, I shoot a lot of screencast video tutorials. I do it for clients so that they know how to do things on their website. So if they want to be able to add a news story or add or remove an active member of their organization, I create a video tutorial that they can then view at any time. So I utilize what's called Screencast-O-Matic. That's what I'm using right now to record this presentation. I use Screencast-O-Matic, which is 29 bucks for 3 years. At least that's what I paid about a year and a half ago. And so it's a great deal. And then I use a microphone. I use the Yeti Blue microphone. So having a way to record your screen and record you talking, you're going to be able to do video tutorials. Then I just simply upload them as unlisted videos, and I create an unlisted playlist and make it specific to the client and send the client that link to that playlist. That way they have access to all the video tutorials that they want. It's on a platform, YouTube, that is well trusted and well maintained. And it seems to work pretty well for my clients. Productivity software, like I mentioned, Office 365, Outlook, Word, PowerPoint. You want something for creating your proposals, for doing any accounting or whatever. If you decide not to use Wave apps and you want to use a spreadsheet, Excel's part of Office 365. The other option would be the G Suite, Google Suite, which has all the Google Docs and Google Drive and whatnot. Personally, I recommend Office 365. I'm allowed to install all those programs on 5 devices. So I have my home computer, my large desktop computer, I have my laptop, and then my cell phone. And so I can install full versions of all those products on those devices and have everything available across all of them. So I personally love 365, but there are other options out there, but that's what I would recommend. Graphics editing, Photoshop or GIMP. You want a way to be able to edit down graphics. When somebody takes a picture, like for me, when somebody takes a picture of a fire engine, it usually comes in like 6,000 by 6,000 resolution, and it's about a 5 megabyte file. Obviously, we don't want that on the website. That's going to take a while to load. So I need a way to trim it down or to shrink it and still maintain good image quality. So Adobe Photoshop or GIMP, you can get Photoshop for $9 a month. And I'll do a quick kind of sidebar on cost. You want to kind of develop a budget as far as what you anticipate things costing for the year. And really, web design doesn't have a lot of overhead. I think I'm at about $1,100 a year in total expenses. And 1 or 2 web design projects, pretty small web design projects, will take care of that right there. So developing a budget and knowing kind of what you can spend or what you're going to spend in the following year or in the current year is extremely helpful. And really, aside from, your software and some of your, plugins for various projects, you're really not spending a lot. And so a lot of money when you do a project is just going to be paying you for your time. So developing a budget is actually extremely important, and it really isn't that expensive. Video conferencing, I use join.me. So when I do a client check-in, I mentioned at the beginning, no borders, as being a benefit for starting a web design business. And that really is it. Once you've determined that, that you have your target audience and you've kind of moved beyond doing some smaller projects to build a portfolio, you can go anywhere. My most recent clients, I'm based in the state of Oregon. I have a state of Washington, Colorado, Texas, and a California client. And I just got an email from a client in Connecticut. So really, it's no borders. And with phone calls and video conferencing, you can really do anything. And so I use join.me. I also have Skype if they want to do face-to-face, but for the most part, my video conferencing is screen sharing. So it actually should say screen sharing there, not video conferencing. But join.me is free. It allows me to share my screen and send a link to the client I'm working with. They open the link and it shares my entire screen, and I can show them if it's a status update. I can show them the website, make changes on the fly if they have some things they want to change immediately. And so that's another free resource that I'd highly recommend when you're interacting with your clients. Contract management. So you're obviously going to need a way for people to sign their documents, for them to sign your proposal. I use Sign Request. There's a ton of them out there. DocuSign was one of them. Sign Request for me is $8 a month. And it's very inexpensive and allows me to upload my documents, as many as I want, so I can send them my terms and conditions and my website proposal, make the marks of where I need them to sign. It sends it to them. They sign it on either their cell phone. They can use their finger, or they can use their mouse on their computer, or they can copy in a pre-existing signature, and they send it back to me. It's completely legal. Sign Request has all the legal backing that makes the documents that are signed completely legal and legally binding. And then I just send a copy, or the client can download their own copy of the client or of the project proposal for their records. So I'd highly recommend determining some type of contract management software as well. And then develop your portfolio. So like I mentioned at the beginning, local, family, or friends, that's kind of where you want to start, and maybe consider doing them for low cost or free. But as you start developing your portfolio, you still want to stay close to your target niche. For me, like I mentioned earlier, I started out doing websites for family members. I did a website for my former employer that I worked for previous to being a firefighter. And then I did websites for fellow firefighters who have side businesses. I did them for low cost. I did a couple nonprofit sites for free, but I tried to stay as close as I could to my niche, which was fire department websites. So then you obviously want to circle back to your niche and price accordingly. The final step is continually evolve and improve. Continue learning your client needs. I mentioned it earlier that you always want to be asking questions and learning about your clients because your niche needs are always going to change. And then you want to tweak your solutions to match those needs. Adjust your pricing, like we said, when necessary, and know when to ask for help. There are tons of resources out there. Since I use Elementor, I belong to the Elementor community, which is about 25,000 users across the entire world that use Elementor and do web design. So knowing when to ask for help, if you don't know how to do something, or you have questions on how to do something within Elementor, within WordPress, or whatever you're trying to do, there are resources out there. So find those resources. If you're using Elementor, I'd highly recommend using the Elementor Facebook group. It's very, very beneficial. And finally, have fun. It's a side business. The nice thing about this is I'm not worried about if I lose a client or lose a lead, or I'm making a little less than what everybody else is making when they're building websites. I don't care. I'm having fun. I enjoy doing web design. I enjoy doing it for the fire service. And I get to make a little bit of side cash on the side, which helps me go have fun or save for a cool trip or just put away for retirement. So that's really what it boils down to, especially when it's a side business, is have fun. It really is a blast, and you're not worried about your livelihood because it's just side cash. So anyway, I apologize. I was trying to keep this under half an hour, but we're at about almost 44 minutes. But thank you for taking the time. I hope this was helpful. Good luck on your endeavors. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below. I don't do a ton of videos. So if you want to subscribe to Ignis Web Design's YouTube page, great. But this is the first one I've done in a while, but hopefully you found it helpful. And best of luck out there. Go forth and conquer. And thanks for watching.